So basically, what we'll be doing now is bringing in our international speakers. I hope my colleagues have them online already. I will be, yes, they're showing me that yes. So basically, before we jump into this case, I still have a question for all of you. So please pick out your Slido again, both you online as well as all of you, because we will be talking about data, HR, and skills. Have you heard and actually implemented? Look, they're switching very quickly, my colleagues. So have you implemented data and AI in HR talent or skills? Yes, no, not sure. I'm not sure what my company is doing, possibly. I think I know what the winner is. The winner is no. And then it's not sure. And that's what we thought. It's not a case that we usually hear so much about. And that's why we invited our speakers here. And let me introduce them to all of you so you know who you are listening from. So basically, it's a trio, not from Austria, not from DACH. It's actually Andrew Gardner here on the side. He is joining us from Accenture, UK and Ireland. He has worked in talent and organization, specifically area, as a manager for many years, and he will be sharing a specific case where this has been implemented, HR, talent and skills. Then we are having Petra, who is joining us from Canada. Petra is head of partnerships at SkyHive. SkyHive is a growing provider, growing startup that is really using different quantum labor analysis. They call themselves a platform to gather insights that can be reused throughout the business organization to really foster insights and skills in talents and to help the companies on their journey. And Petra will explain to us what these use cases are even about. And then we have a third one that is MaryKate Morley Ryan, Managing Director at Accenture, joining us from the US today. And she has really joined various companies throughout their journey of implementing SkyHive. So we wanted to bring you these duo or trio of Accenture together with SkyHive, and they will be talking about real implementation cases. What have they done with banks? How has SkyHive worked with other non-financial services companies? And so without further ado, hand over to all of you and looking forward to your insights.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys can hear me all right, I assume. Awesome.
Perfect.
So, and Andrew, you can go to the next slide. I don't know if it's going to show up here. But as Natalie was talking about, yeah, this is a space where we're seeing a lot of investment and sort of evolution, if you will, of leveraging artificial intelligence as a part of the overall skilling process, or kind of more broadly with HR strategy. And just, part of why we're seeing that is just the speed of which change is happening, right? And it's also, this idea of making sure that we keep humans and people at the center. So we're seeing investments, across all industries really in this space. And you'll see a few of the case studies that we're going to highlight are not only within financial services, but more broadly. But these are some of the key reasons that we're seeing organizations really look at this space and seek to understand how they can leverage AI more broadly within the organization. So one is really keeping pace, right, with change and with what's going on in the world. Another is just really making sure that, you have the right skills for the strategy that you are implementing and what you're going after in the future. And you can see some of the stats beneath that. I won't sort of read the whole slide. The other piece is really being very prescriptive and very focused around specific areas of talent. So whether that's cybersecurity, oftentimes it's within the talent space or within the technology space, but also things like product managers and product owners and merchandising. Those are spaces where we're seeing a lot of demand in the market, and not a lot of sort of skills, just that are sort of ready for folks to plug into the open roles. So those are some of the key reasons I think that we're really seeing just this movement towards more of a skills driven approach to people practices. And then more broadly, focusing on inclusion. So when we focus on skills and we focus on sort of the basics of what folks have versus maybe on pedigree, or degrees, or other sort of things that may exclude them from roles, this can drive inclusion much more broadly. You can go to the next slide, Andrew. So this is a little bit of our history with SkyHive, and Petra will kind of pick up from here in a bit. But Accenture invested in SkyHive through what we call Project Spotlight back in 2020. SkyHive was one of the initial investments that Accenture made as a part of this broader investment strategy. And that included also a strategic alliance around how we go to market, and how we really think about this space. So I mentioned the importance of inclusion, the importance of, really thinking about, your talent strategy from a skills perspective. And one of the ways that you can do that is leveraging artificial intelligence. So helping to remove biases, and helping to create more opportunities for folks. So one of the things that, or one of the cases which we'll highlight on the next slide, and you can go to the next slide if you'd like, Andrew. Our initial piece of work was actually with the World Economic Forum, Walmart, and Unilever, where we looked across both organizations across very specific roles and looked at, what are some commonalities in those roles? What are some skill adjacencies? What is the market showing us around these roles? And how could we look at supporting people from moving one role that may be in less demand into a higher demand role, both within each of those organizations and then across them, with this idea of really democratizing the availability and the insights around skills, as well as really focusing on how can we bring more opportunities to people and drive more agency, let choice, let people really choose where they want to be versus maybe feeling stuck. So that's one of the case studies that I just sort of covered quickly. You can see on the other two here. I'll cover the bottom one, and then we'll cover a few more in a bit here. But the second one that I want to cover is on the bottom here, where we looked across the technology organization of a large North America financial services organization, and looked not only at what were the emerging skills related to the roles that we were focused on. So the company was really looking at what talent do they need in the future, what skills do they need to make that future happen. We looked at both the roles, leveraging SkyHive's capability within the organization, but then also looked at competitors and looked at kind of the broader market to understand, what might be gaps in the strategy around skilling, or gaps in the broader sort of thinking around where we need to make some people investments. And then at the top right, very similar use case here. This organization was really looking at, what are the digital skills they need in the future across their entire business. So not just within technology, but within all functions. And we worked closely with SkyHive to look at what are the other organizations in this space doing? What are other organizations outside of this industry doing for those particular functions? And what are some of the skill paths, coming back to the sort of skill adjacencies? What are some of the places we can find talent, and what ways can we sort of help them move into the roles that we know this organization is going to need in the future? So looking at both skill paths, skill adjacencies, and emerging skills in the market, so that organization could start to make those investments now and not feel like they were sort of on their heels, or trying to catch up later. So those are a few sort of brief case studies here. And I think that, it's a good way to sort of, I think, understand how AI is being leveraged in this space. I want to make sure that it's clear that artificial intelligence and SkyHive is not the total solution. The human must be involved in the process, and it's absolutely a partnership there, if you will, sort of human and machine. I think that was a theme I heard from the earlier session too. This is not something you turn on and it gives you all the answers. You must have a human sort of guiding and reviewing and engaged, both from a change management perspective, helping people sort of engage with the platform, but also from a making sure that the strategy makes sense and you're focused on the right things. So yeah, I don't know if I hand off to Andrew or Petra here.
Yeah, hand off to me. Thank
Okay,
you, MaryKate.
awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Well, schönen guten Abend aus Vancouver, Canada. My name is Petra Kuret, and I head up partnerships here at SkyHive, having come from leading a transformation at one of Canada's banks and quickly realizing that technology wasn't the issue, but talent was, and then having spent some time in consulting. And as a startup, our mission really is quite bold, and that is, next slide, to enable 7 billion people in the world with a skill passport to address unemployment and underemployment with the goal of economic security for all. And SkyHive is really one of the most advanced reskilling platforms powered by our underlying technology of quantum labor analysis. So you can think of SkyHive almost as the Google of the world labor market, and capturing the shifts and changes in the supply and demand of jobs and skills. And so next, just a little bit about us. We're a social for-profit company serving the global 2000s as well as governments on all continents. And we're thrilled to have investors such as Deutsche Bank, Workday, and Accenture, and then humbled last year by the recognition from Gardner, the World Economic Forum, and Forbes. And certainly underpinning everything we do is the use of responsible AI, of course, in this really important space of talent and skills, and we'll get a little bit more into that. So to set the stage, as you're all aware, whether it's a pandemic, technology disruptors in the FinTech space, changing consumer expectations, it's that pace and degree of change that is accelerated well beyond how organizations can adjust their workforce to the needs of whatever the business imperative is. And then on the flip side, companies are falling short in understanding the true DNA of their workforce due to the classic application of constructs such as job architectures, competing models, and that's really impacting the ability to pivot the workforce. So after 20 years of producing data and organizing data, the world's now focused on and has access to technology that's cognifying all facets of information. And cognification is applying machine learning to make something smarter. And that's really at the heart of what we do here at SkyHive, the cognification and democratization of the world labor economy. And so we've achieved that by inventing breakthrough technology called quantum labor analytics, which is the application of artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze a workforce at its most granular level. And that's at the skill level. And this creates the first fluid skill ontology. Next. And so why is quantum labor analysis really unique in this space? We process about 18 to 20 terabytes of data on across 150 countries that feeds the largest knowledge graph with about 6.2 billion nodes that serves as the source for data, jobs, skills, and training. And that data really comes from a number of sources, whether those are job boards and aggregators, professional networks, government agencies. In terms of understanding the future and emerging skills, we're looking at patents that are pending, academic studies, thought leadership, and all of this is coming into, again, the ability for us to look at the supply and the demand, the skills that are emerging, the skills that are contracting, and the skills that are staying constant, which really informs that real-time fluid skill ontology that is helping organizations, governments, not-for-profits really shift the workforce to where they need it. So again, almost acting as that Google of the world labor market, where you could Google what's the highest supply of data scientists, what skills and experience should inform where I locate my center of excellence. which competitor am I losing my DevOps employees to, and what salaries and bonuses. So really the magnitude of this knowledge graph is what powers the applications that sit on top of quantum labor analysis. Next slide. So just to summarize here in terms of what differentiates SkyHive is one, this real-time view of the labor market, if you will, almost like the stock market ticker tape, helping you understand those skills and where they're coming from. Quantum labor analysis, which we've talked about, taking that information down to its most granular level, and that's the skill level, to be able to move and see the DNA of your workforce and move it to the right place at the right time. And then ultimately, all organizations have made incredible investments, and so into their tech architecture internally in their ecosystem. And so we're extensible by design, whether that's integrating with Workday or SuccessFactors or any of the other talent solutions. And then quite understandably, we need to normalize the data, our data, and the labor market view with what is within the organization itself. And then finally, and most importantly, we're leaders working with the OECD and others around the ethical use of AI that's defensible, explainable, and accountable ultimately to the organization, to regulators, and to individuals. Next slide. And so how really does this come to life in an organization? It really acts as the decoder ring to understand your workforce. And so for the first time, you can see the DNA of your workforce at the skill level. So our clients are answering 4 simple questions. What are the skills we have? What are the skills we need in the future? Because I'm getting those from the labor market. What are the gaps? Because I'm able to do that gap assessment, understand the proximity and adjacency of roles and skills, and see that in real time. And then ultimately, how do we close those skill gaps, and what actions do we take? So along with our partners like Accenture, SkyHive is helping to inform how you build, buy, borrow, or bought, BOT, your talent strategy, and ultimately how you bring that strategy into action in moving talent to where it's needed most. So again, some of the use cases and the results that clients are working with us on are really around creating greater internal mobility, because now employees can see the kinds of skills they have at a much more granular level and be able to take new opportunities within an organization that they never thought. From an employer perspective, the ability to retain talent because they're able to get that true transparency, create those curated learning paths that are targeted on the skill gaps, and ultimately higher employee engagement as there's greater ownership on the individual of their skill profile or that skill passport of new opportunities. So excited in the question and answer, certainly to speak to more use cases, but whether it's organizations moving through a large cloud transformation in the financial services sector, to others that are looking in, let's say, the mining industry to really shift that talent around globally in a scarce environment of skills, really the cadre of use cases. So with that, I think I'm handing over here to Andrew.
Great, thanks Petra. So we've heard already from MaryKate about some of the key themes we're seeing in the market when it comes to talent and skills, plus from Petra more about SkyHive. Let me take you through one practical example about how we work together on one of our clients in financial services. So we worked recently with one bank in the UK that really needed to be able to demonstrate to regulators that colleagues had the right skill levels in key skills to do with financial crime and fighting that, and so that the regulator could be clear that colleagues had the right skills to tackle that. And that was why we worked alongside SkyHive and really used data to make sure that we could provide that evidence to the regulator. So prior to starting, there wasn't really that evidence of where the skills gaps were seen in an organization. And so it meant that training plans to address skill gaps didn't have that data-driven and evidence-based element. And that was really the focus of what we wanted to do. So our approach was quite simple. We worked collaboratively with SkyHive to do a 5-phased implementation plan that had the colleague at the center. So we really focused on launching a skills assessment using SkyHive, like Petra alluded to earlier, to around 2,500 colleagues in the organization. And the colleagues were able to assess their proficiency levels in a range of different topics. Line managers were also able to ratify those and provide their validation so that we could identify and use SkyHive's artificial intelligence capabilities to be able to identify where are we seeing our top skill strengths and where are our top skill gaps. And that allowed us to identify what recommendations do we have for what training can be done next year to address those gaps. So it's really about providing to the regulator and to colleagues a really data-driven, evidence-based view of where training should be prioritised for the year ahead. And the real focus is by using SkyHive in this scenario, not only have we got an example of what this looks like, as a one-off, but we do have the opportunity to do this further, given there's a multi-year license. So the idea is we have a scalable model that will allow us to do this again and again and identify recurring patterns or changes that have seen, using that data to help inform, decision-making and strategy across the learning side. In terms of what the outcomes are, we did see that by really supporting colleagues with lots of change management, so we did regular communications, we did demos for colleagues of how to use the SkyHive tool. It's very intuitive, but we just wanted to make sure that colleagues had an opportunity to go through it step by step with us, and we were there to address any questions. So we saw more than 60% of colleagues adopting the SkyHive tool, putting it in to get their results, as well as a high proportion of line managers. That allowed us to really get concrete skill gaps at the team level and at the role level. It helped us really provide that evidence-based view of where skill gaps were. And that allowed us to provide a summary view of 6 core recommendations that we can feed into next year. So to kind of just put the focus back on the human, like MaryKate was alluding to earlier, what this looked like for the colleagues, it was a really simple journey. So we really proactively worked ahead of time with business leads to make sure that people knew this was coming, wasn't an unexpected request. And then on the day itself that SkyHive launched, we did a phased rollout to different teams rather than a big bang to make sure everyone was able to address it in a really targeted way. We did launch communications, we provided a live demo, and colleagues went directly into the tool to access their profile and rate themselves. And then at that point, that was them done. Probably a 15-minute job for them at most. Then the line managers then went in after that. They had the chance to validate the results again with a live demo to help them walk through. And then at the end of that, that's when we were able to get the results using SkyHive's AI. And then from that, use that to populate a report that provided our results and then recommendations. So that's just one example in a little bit more depth about how we were able to partner together to provide that insight for one of our clients there. Natalie, I think I'm handing back to you for the Q&A component now, if I'm right.
Yes, perfect. What a handover, Andrew. I think you should be the moderator here next time, huh? So I hope that all of you got a bit inspired. When I heard about this case for the first time, and then I was asking myself, okay, what about the learnings and the challenges? How open? We need to bring back my colleagues. We don't see them anymore. Exactly. How open are organizations really to applying data in the HR and skills area? MaryKate or Petra, you work with a lot of them.
Yeah, I would say very open at this point. I would say a majority of the organizations that I'm working with are already doing something in this space. I think the evolution is either, I guess the maturity is either sort of they are doing something in a small scale. One function is already, sort of leveraging AI, or they have built an entire organization really focused around sort of analytics, AI and analytics as it relates to both workforce planning, skills assessments, and also sort of future state planning, if you will, kind of beyond workforce planning. So that'd be my perspective. Petra, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say many organizations, more than ever before, I would say, are just realizing their business as at a tipping point if they don't fundamentally understand the DNA of their workforce. And with whether it's the Great Resignation, whether it's the war for talent, they need to look internally and see what they have to be able to create those opportunities for employees within, as well as know where to spend scarce talent dollars in the external market. And so the time is now for this kind of technology. And again, it's an art and a science, as we've said so many times. We bring the science and the technology, but really, whether it's the executives, whether it's the business leaders or employees, and then HR, all four layers, really having visibility and transparency to the same data, but then more than ever to move quickly to make those decisions to win in whatever industry they're in, whether that's the race to green our planet, whether that's a change and shift in the business model because of what we've just come through in the pandemic, and the economic situation that is on our doorstep now. So talent really is never been before been really at the heart of what some of the most acute business challenges are for leaders.
And then something actually from you, from the audience, or you're online. Where do you get the data from? That's what everyone is wondering. Complexity to get data, and specifically this case, where to get the data from?
So we collect data from over 150 countries. So you can imagine just the enormity of collecting that data. Then specifically the type of data we're collecting is anything from professional networks, job boards, aggregators, government agencies of any and all kind, though recognizing those are often lagging indicators in terms of the data. Thought leadership coming out of universities or think tanks, patents. Imagine scanning crawlers and bots, scanning all of the patents that are pending. We were one of the first to start seeing this notion of metaverse come up in the world labor market. So, and then it's just the amount of data, right, that we're taking in, the 15 to 20 terabytes of data. We're processing that through a proprietary, well, certainly through algorithms, and then through a proprietary neural network that is creating the relationships and clustering the types of data and information that we're seeing in the labor market.
And then what about when collaborating with large corporates, not only in financial services, but in general? What are some of the challenges that you are facing? Because why am I asking this? I've been asking this already 3-4 times today, but when I asked Petra this, she gave me a few answers I didn't hear yet before. Sorry, well, Petra.
Now I may not remember what I said. So the first is that organizations don't have the data on their workforce. So what's in their HRIS is limited. Though, again, the power of SkyHive is the ability to extract the skills from very little data, actually, that an employee might have or an organization might have, although it can start with something as simple as your CV, resume, or your LinkedIn profile that you would upload. And certainly with the World Economic Forum, we found people self-reported about 6 skills. When AI SkyHive is applied, 34 skills emerge. So you can imagine, therefore, the exponential opportunity when you understand skills that you don't self-report in terms of the opportunities. So that's number one, is the kind of data that we're getting from workforces or from companies. Then the second challenge would really be for employees to think differently and to own their skill passport and their ability to chart internally the learning path or the career path to close the skill gap, to see new opportunity within the organization, or quite frankly outside the organization, if that's a better choice. And so, we might 5 years down the road, employers, the whole equation may shift, where it's not employers looking for talent in the market, but rather the other way around, that the employee with their skill passport is going to employers, and the whole the way that we recruit for talent today is different. But you can always give me a teaser, Natalie, if there were others that we had talked about.
No, exactly these. And then you mentioned ontology, skills
Yes.
ontology, that it's
Yes.
not yet fully understood within the company, which I found interesting. Maybe you can share a bit.
Yeah, great point and reminder. Thank you for that. This is a fundamental paradigm shift for organizations to no longer have static Excel-based skill definitions, skill architectures or job architectures, but really that now there is a fluid, real-time, dynamic skill ontology so that it is changing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And you're starting to see the shifts of which skills are emerging in the marketplace in a certain geography. Therefore, I need to get ahead of that or know that my competitors might be hiring that. These are the skills I need to continue to invest in because the labor market is signaling that those continues to stay constant. And then on the other side, on the platform, you can see which skills are declining. And again, those change on a regular basis. And so for organizations, that fundamental paradigm shift of something that's static moving to something that's fluid and dynamic is what is really the game changer.
And then maybe another question still to Andrew and MaryKate to wrap up. Why would organizations go with a third party like SkyHive? Or why would they not just kickstart these projects internally? I would be interested in that.
Yeah, I think because they don't have the technology. So I think part of it is, to develop this sort of like AI takes a bit of time, to say the least. And in some organizations, that would be sort of too much of an investment, is what I would say, Natalie. So I know even for organizations like Accenture, our size, right, running multiple algorithms in this space, right, is a big investment. And at the same time, we feel like it's really important to spend the time and the money and the sort of brain power around it. But I think the key is just really having someone else who's sort of looking at those algorithms, being more agnostic about it, I think is really important. And just from a speed perspective, it would take a long time to develop the technology or anything like what SkyHive or others in this space have created. So yeah, that would be my thoughts. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew. Yeah,
MaryKate, I would agree, and I think that I'm sure there are models that may work with a much smaller audience that are offline, but really the technology that something like SkyHive provides really allows you to scale up for a larger audience, a larger number of skills, different business areas, different geographies. So for organizations like the ones that we work with that have complex size and scale, being able to use something like SkyHive to do one assessment, more than one assessment, just is a lot more, like MaryKate says, just gives the speed, the efficiencies that other providers maybe wouldn't have.
Perfect. Well, thanks to the three of you. I looked at my phone, like I said, not TikTok, but all the questions. There's many. So really this case was triggering a lot of thoughts. I would suggest we can connect anyone that is interested to brainstorm a bit more about this case and ask the questions personally. So thanks to the three of you for your time. Also, it's quite early on your side, not like afternoon here. So thanks a lot, and talk soon, maybe in another context. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks very much.